Welcome to the Abolitionist Sanctuary Podcast. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Nakia Smith-Robert. I am excited about this Women's History Month and the honor we have to introduce our guest, the inimitable and legendary, the Reverend Dr. Renita Weems. Reverend Dr. Renita Weems is a writer, a minister, a biblical scholar, public intellectual, and ordained elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Dr. Weems is the African-American woman, the first to earn a PhD in Old Testament studies from Princeton Theological Seminary. Dr. Weems has held faculty appointments at Vanderbilt Divinity School, Spelman College, Howard University School of Divinity, and Memphis Theological Seminary. In 2024, she served as the Crump Visiting Professor and Black Religious Scholar Group Scholar in Residence at the Seminary of the Southwest in Austin, Texas. Dr. Weems currently serves as Professor of Biblical Studies and Academic Dean at Gammon Theological Seminary in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Weems has numerous books, commentaries, and articles bridging the academy, church, and public square. She has lectured at venues ranging from the Chautauqua Institution to university campuses and Black church pulpits. Among her written works includes the award-winning Listening for God, A Minister's Journey Through Silence and Doubt, which won the Religious Communicators Council's prestigious 1999 Wilbur Award for Excellence in Communicating Spiritual Values to the Secular Media. She is the first African-American woman to deliver the Yale University Lyman Beecher Lecture. Dr. Weems is featured in Black Stars, African-American Religious Leaders, a collection of biographies of some of the most important Black religious leaders over the last 200 years, including such impressive figures such as Adam Clayton Powell, Elijah Muhammad, Sojourner Truth, Howard Thurman, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. Weems' ongoing work explores African-American intellectual life, the early generation of womanist thinkers, and a forthcoming memoir examining how the civil rights and women's movements shaped her commitments to church, scripture, and struggle. I'm excited to introduce and to join in conversation today the Reverend Dr. Juanita Weems. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I am delighted to be here with you.
Dr. Weems, as we begin our show, can you share with us what are your pronouns? Give us a visual representation of how you're showing up in this space and tell us who are your people.
Thank you. Let's see. My pronouns are she and her. I believe that covers the gamut of who I am in terms of pronoun. I am right now coming to you from my home in Nashville, and we are in my makeshift studio, bedroom, study, do all things in here with. I don't know how much more graphically I can describe that, but it is a space that matters to me. If I may just kind of add parenthetically, just got some brand new windows throughout my house, and I have a view downtown. So I am, and the trees are still bare because it is winter here, even in Nashville, and so I am looking out at bare trees without leaves, but it is still a very beautiful sight. So I enjoy this space, and I cannot be in any space that doesn't have windows. That's for sure. And Black people have a way of keeping their curtains closed. So, nevertheless, I cannot stand to stay at my girlfriend. I can't stand to stay at my friend's house and they don't open up their curtains. I'm like, girl, what's going on here? I can't take this. Okay, that's just a
The streets
parenthetical.
be watching, Dr. Weems. The
Yes, I
streets.
know. Black people be so scared somebody looking in. So anyway, what was that last one that you asked
Who
me?
are your people?
My people are my people are people from Georgia, deep down in Georgia, Sparta, Georgia, Lovejoy, Georgia. My mother and father were there in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I have not lived there since I went away from high school, but very, very much shaped uh, by my having been raised in Atlanta, Georgia, during a particular period. I was born in the 50s. I was a kid or a teenager, early teens, during the what we know as the civil rights movement. So I was not a part of that, nor the the freedom movements either. But I was definitely watching on television and very much had those images in my head as a kid and as a teenager who was not allowed to join those kinds of movements. So and from two parents who they had been born and raised in a different era, were in fact geniuses, but they were geniuses in a segregated South in the 50s, 40s, and 50s of when they matured and came to fruition. So I'm sure I'm shaped by their deferred dreams or their dashed dreams and the things that they never were able to accomplish. And I think that they did live long enough to see their oldest daughter accomplish a number of those things. So I am Carrie Baker Weems and Willie James Weems Sr. daughter.
Ashe, Ashe. Thank you for sharing that. My pronouns are also she, hers. And how I'm showing up in this space is a full beat face with some Fenty MVP red lipstick and blonde extension braids with a black sequin lapel blazer and a string of pearls and a shirt that gives ode to Black women
Mm,
for Women's History Month. My people are people who hail from Williamston, North Carolina,
mm,
and those 9 siblings migrated to Harlem, New York, where I am the proud daughter of a single Black mother, um, Carol Mercedes Smith. And my people are not only those who are in Harlem, but those church mothers at First AME Bethel and strong Black women who were a part of grassroots political movements from the Tenants Association and public housing to elected office. And so I stand in their tradition.
mhm, mhm. Ashe.
Ashe. Dr. Weems, I am
Yes.
so honored to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
I have the privilege to know you personally. And so I know that these questions will guide our conversation, but I know that the conversation will take on a spirit of its own as but I wanted to start with, who is young Renita Weems? What are some of your fondest memories? Who did you want to be when you grow up? And did you ever imagine that you would be where you are today?
Wow. The Renita, if I can go back to, there have been several Renitas.
Mhm.
There's no one Renita. There is certainly the Renita of the young girl, the kid, the 8-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 13 and 14-year-old. And then there's the Renita of high school, I would say. And then there's the Renita of college and ultimately going on to graduate school. So there have been different Renitas. And the Renita of my youth, if we will say that, let's say preteen. I think
Mhm.
let's go preteen. The preteen Renita always had a very vivid imagination. I lived in my head. I dreamed in my head. I came from a pretty, chaotic family situation in terms of substance abuse and violence. That was not all, but that was certainly a part of my growing up. And I was the oldest girl, and so I lived a lot in my head. I dreamed a lot. I had imaginary friends and an imaginary family in my head, and so I read a lot. I was a voracious reader. Even my mother tells me that at a very young age, I think pre-kindergarten, but certainly by kindergarten, I was already reading. I was a girl who I played with paper dolls. If anybody remembers paper dolls, not just dolls. I mean, I had dolls eventually, Barbie dolls, and another doll whose eyes followed you, or it seemed to follow you wherever you went. I had a very vivid imagination with my dolls. But before we could afford dolls, I played with paper dolls. I cut out women images from the Sears and Roebuck, not just Sears and Roebuck catalog, and I played with that. I played with. I won't even get into the kind of rudimentary kind of dolls that I played with, but I really enjoyed uh, paper dolls. I absolutely. I loved being able to put a new dress on her, and I just had to rub it on her, or I put those little ties in the back of it. This is old school.
Mhm.
But it really fed an imagination. That's what I really want to say, because ultimately when we get to, my hobbies now of sewing and quilting, if I can think back, and this is probably my first time even thinking back to this, but I'm not a clothes horse. I'm not a woman who loves clothes. I'm not that type. But there was something about those paper dolls and those clothes and the girls and the life that I imagined for them that was very real. So I've said that. So that's who I was. I was a little colored girl in Georgia in the late 50s and early and 60s. So what else do girls dream of in that era but to be a school teacher? I'm sure that was my highest ambition, and that was very, very typical of what it meant to be a girl in that era, the most poised and professional and impactful women that I knew at that period were women who were educators, whether they were school teachers or whether they were principals. I didn't know any women physicians, although there were one or two in Atlanta. I didn't know politicians. I didn't know professors. Oh my God. Certainly knew no writers who were women. Did not know women who were physicians. So therefore, unapologetically, I say, of course, I dreamed of being a school teacher, and of course, I became a school teacher. Whatever else being a professor has meant, whatever else being a scholar, an academic means, it means I'm a good old-fashioned colored school teacher. And I have written a lot about colored school teachers being my saviors, being the ones who were my who were the bridge from who I was to who I have become. I can name colored school teachers, even a couple of male teachers who were who took an interest in me and who literally mentored me, mothered me, fathered me. And it helped that I was a good student. That's no doubt about that. But I always had a mouth. I was mouthy. I wasn't disruptive by any stretch of the imagination. But once you got to know me, you could tell I had strong opinions. I asked a lot of questions, and I could charm a teacher. I could charm a teacher. So I know when students are trying to charm me, and it doesn't work at all. But nevertheless, so that's who I was. That's who I was as a little girl. And I remember sitting in front of the television and watching. I remember when King Martin Luther King was assassinated, and I remember the funeral procession in Atlanta. Now, mind you, I'm in Atlanta, and it was over there on Auburn Avenue. I remember the images of Stokely Carmichael. I remember the stories of Angela Davis. Now, this is a little bit later when I'm in high school and later, but that's who I was. And I knew I had a good brain. I knew I had a good mind because my teachers told me, and because I could hold a conversation with my teachers about anything. But I didn't know what that meant. Spelman College was far-fetched for me. I went to a high school that was a good working class high school. Very few students went to college from my high school. Now I'm growing up right when schools are in Atlanta. Remember, 1954 is when the Brown versus Board of Education, but it would not really trickle down in the South, the real desegregation of schools. Yeah, it may have been 1954 that the law was passed, but it really didn't. It took another 15 to 20 years in a lot of places. And this, so we're talking about by the late 60s. I remember my whole high school class are now being bused over to another school, or and their white kids are coming to the school I was attending. And then I moved to an area where there were white kids in the, whose parents did not have the money to move out of the neighborhood, who there were white kids. But up until about the 10th grade or 11th grade, I never had gone to school with white students, white kids, and I don't think I had any white teachers. I can't
Mhm.
remember, but it was not until I was in about the 10th grade, ninth or 10th grade, that I had a white teacher, and that there were whites, that I went to school with white kids. So you're talking about that kind of, so colored school teachers, but there were some impactful. You're making me really think about this, Nikia.
Yeah. Good.
There was a librarian, Miss Crutchfield, who was a white librarian. Again, books, reading, who let me do my whatever they called it then, home study, room, whatever we did. That my free period, I worked in the library. And Miss Helen Crutchfield was a white librarian who taught me the Dewey Decimal System and taught me
Mm,
how to stack books and what areas they needed to go into. So, and the counselor, the high school counselor, who was very impactful in helping me get to college, was a white woman, Miss Flowers.
mhm.
But and just very important. but it was Mr. Smith, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Henderson, Mr. Woods. These were the colored. I love to call them colored because that's what they were. Colored teachers who really spoke into my life. Yeah, so that was that Renita, and so I dreamed of being a teacher, and I knew by high school that I wanted to go to college. And I'll just kind of close this part up by saying that, but I didn't know where. And like I said, I went to a high school where nobody really went to college because it was working class area. But two young ladies from my high school, from the year ahead of me, went to Mount Holyoke College up in Massachusetts. Never heard of Mount Holyoke, didn't know what that was. But I did work in the counselor's office also. There was a little period that I worked in. And so you get all these little flyers, this is when, again, that's a whole nother piece of research that I've done, and you and I can come back to if you want to. But 1968, when King is assassinated, colleges across the country began to really reach out to Black students. Now, Black students had always gone to Mount Holyoke, gone to Berkeley, gone to University of Kansas. That's not the issue. But the issue is that those top schools, only Black students from very upper middle class families,
Mhm.
private schools, daddies were doctors and lawyers. Those are the ones who went to these Ivy schools. But 68, admissions in higher ed changed. They now flooded cities looking for deserving Black students, even from schools that were not the top schools. That's how a lot of us. Why Black admissions, Black enrollment just took off in the late '60s. And it was the spring of King's assassination. He was murdered in April 1968, and I can tell you that by September 1968, many of these schools had their largest Black student population enrollment, new freshmen, Black freshmen, that September. So I would not go into college till 72, 73, but otherwise I would have made it to Georgia State or maybe Morris Brown,
Mhm.
and throwing no shade there, no shade there. However, these two young women went to Mount Holyoke, and back then, Nikhil, you're too young to know this. You would come home from college during Christmas break, and most often you went to your high school to see your old school teachers and to let them see you after one semester. Well, these two young women from Mount Holyoke, who were just graduated the year before, came to my high school to see their teachers and to see those of us who may want to go to college. Well, when I tell you ugly ducklings were beautiful queens, I was like, what school did they go to? Look how they look. They're so poised. They're pretty. I want to go that's
Right,
where I'm going to.
right, right.
I went to Wellesley because the two women from Mount Holyoke from my high school came back Christmas break transformed,
Mm,
transformed intellectually, spiritually, physically. And I wanted that.
yeah.
And so I applied to Wellesley College, an Ivy League, Seven Sisters.
Mhm.
Before then, I had never heard of such a place. So, listen, when you interview somebody who is my age, we don't know anything about short stories. We cannot even, you're like, I have lived longer than you have by about 30 years. So it's like, girl, when you ask us, we don't have a little short answer. So I'm going to try to make the rest of them short. But in terms of how did I get here, those kinds of serendipitous moments, those kinds of moments where it just had to be God, those moments when your internal world and your external world come together at a pivotal moment. Those moments when you didn't even know it was God
Mm.
until you look back at it 10 or 15, 20, 30, 40 years later.
My God.
Yeah.
My God. Thank you for that. And I appreciate you going into that to the details because it shows that there's not a room that we enter into alone. And we
Hmm.
bring our ancestors, we bring these histories, these stories with
Hmm.
us. And if it wasn't for a good teacher,
Good teacher.
where would we be?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had bad teachers growing up, in a public school in Harlem, I remember a teacher telling me in 8th grade that I would never make it.
Hmm.
And so it was that in some ways that became the impetus for me to become this overachiever, to disprove her, right, to prove her wrong. But I also picked up hobbies along the way. Basketball was my hobby. I played basketball from sun up to
Mhm.
sundown, and I had a really good coach, and the coach told me that how you play on the court is how you will play off of the court. And I had a
Mhm.
temper on the court.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
another thing she would say, never play down to the defense, make them play up to you.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
so it was the lessons on those in that hobby in the basketball court that really shaped me. But good teachers as well. Thinking about a teacher in 6th and 7th grade, Bruce Kantz and Richard Miller, who in many ways saved my life because it
Yeah.
means something when teachers believe in you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when they see something in you that the world is telling you you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Good
I'm
point. Good
grateful for
point.
that. Yeah.
Listen, last year, a couple of years ago, I had a milestone birthday,
Yeah.
which was 70.
Woo!
And my ninth grade school teacher
Wow.
came to my birthday party.
Oh my.
And when I think about I mean, so I mean, even to this day, we text each other. She has been in my life. She has never, but mostly she has almost never missed a birthday in terms of
Wow.
sending me a card. But this is the woman I usually credit the most because, and by 14, I had a very chaotic family life.
Yeah.
And this is the teacher that I was disruptive in her class. And she is the one who kept me after school, who made me stay after school. And you don't know anything about this, Nikhil, but writing on the chalkboard, I
Uh-huh.
will not curse
Yeah, oh,
out
I
the
know
teacher.
about it.
I will not curse out the teacher. I will not curse out
Uh-huh.
I had to clean the board. I had to straighten up the room. And all the while I'm talking to her and she's talking to me. So, Renita, what's wrong? Why you act like this? You're such a smart student. All of those kinds of things that
Mhm.
she is bringing me out of my little shell and
Yeah.
trying to find out. And we became, now, girl, I was not her friend, but you couldn't tell me I wasn't her friend. You couldn't tell me I wasn't her favorite.
Right.
And from 14 to 71, this woman has followed my life. And
Wow.
whenever I'm in Atlanta, I go see her. And I want you to, when I think about the fact, now here's where I get teary eyed. When I think about the fact that I was 14 and she was 27,
Mm.
when I think about the fact that she had just been out of Spelman a few years, when I think about the fact she had just gotten her master's from AU in teaching or math or whatever, and I think back to when I look at 27-year-olds now, and I think about who I was, how what it meant to be a school teacher, to be 27, and I'm just 13 years younger than she is,
Yeah.
but she brought me through a period. Now, to me, she was 50 years old. I mean,
Right.
listen, I thought she was 50. When I think about the fact that she was just 27, I'm like, she wasn't 27, but she had to be 27. But
Yeah.
to me, she was an old woman,
Mhm.
but she reached me. She reached me. She reached me, and she did all the things that we're told now are inappropriate. She let me get close to her.
Yeah.
She let me call her. She
Mhm.
dropped me off at home sometimes. She put me in the car and drove me home sometimes. All the stuff that's inappropriate now that teachers cannot do, and boundaries and all that stuff. If I had to live in that, I would never have made it because
Mm.
she crossed all the boundaries. She did with all, and then when I go back to celebrations of her, I discovered there's a whole bunch of students who love her like me because she did
Mm.
it to all of them. And I thought I was her favorite, but she was just a great teacher.
Yeah.
So she is now late 80s, middle 80s, or something like that, and we are still the best of friends.
Well, if you're 70, she's 83.
Yes, that's correct. She's about 83. Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and I remember that chalkboard. I would put a line all the way down from the top to the bottom and do the eyes and just dash it.
And
uh,
I wish, as you were mentioning about basketball,
yeah.
I am a huge women's basketball fan, huge
Mm.
college. I've got friends. We are on text during the games, okay? And I love the WNBA as well. But I often say, if there's anything I wish I had played ball,
Mm.
because I believe that sports teaches women something.
Oh,
I
yes.
think that sports would have not toughened. It's not toughened, but it may be also toughened. But it is. I didn't know anything about l- losing and getting back up again. I
Hmm.
didn't. I think sports teaches you grit,
Yeah.
perseverance. It
Oh, yeah.
teaches you team sport. It teaches you failure. It teaches you disciplining your body. It teaches you sweating through the hard times, and all of those kinds of things. That now, when I look at the women's basketball, or when I watch sports, period, because I love the NBA too,
Yeah.
I'm awed at the
Yeah.
discipline that
Yeah.
comes with being an athlete.
Yeah, I did not know that you loved women's basketball. Basketball saved my life. I've been playing since I was 5 years old.
Ah,
And I did not play with dolls. I did not jump rope, double dutch, straight rope. I just played basketball to
wow,
whether
wow,
the lights were on outside or not, whether it was raining, whether the ball
wow.
had a grip or not. We played so much that the grip would come off of the ball
I
and my
I didn't
hands
even
would get
know that was
flat.
possible. I didn't
My,
even know that was
my hands would
possible.
flat. And growing up poor, we didn't have basketball courts. So I learned how to
Ah,
play. Full court was a monkey bar on one end and a
wow,
garbage can on the other end.
wow,
And it was
wow,
an intense 5-on-5 with the kids on my block playing basketball in that
wow,
structure. But a
wow.
lot of lessons, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Debbie Smith was my coach and literally saved my life because I was a hothead growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And but I loved basketball, and she said to me at JV, "You're not going to make the varsity team," and I couldn't imagine that because I'm like, in my mind, the best player. And she said, until you fix that attitude, you're not going to make
Wow,
varsity. So she assigned me a mentor, which was
wow,
a player on the varsity team, Lena Green, who's my soror and dear friend now. And she mentored me.
wow.
And I was able to get myself together to make
Yeah.
varsity team. So
Yeah, yeah, great. Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful story. I don't know if you're familiar with this great writer, this great abolitionist writer and thinker, Bettina Love.
Oh yes, she's a baller. Yeah, I
Okay,
love
she's a
Bettina
baller.
Love.
She tells
Yeah.
the story of how basketball saved her
Yes.
life.
Yes.
I mean, it's a beautiful. I love hearing her talk about her journey. It is in New York. I can't remember where she grew
Yeah,
up.
she's in upstate New York. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
no,
Rochester,
Syracuse, right.
Rochester.
Oh, is it
Yeah, somewhere
Rochester?
up there.
Okay.
Yeah, and how balling saved her life, and how she moved from balling to become a scholar. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful she
Yeah.
says one day she just looked up and said, why am I taking, some soft courses in college, and everybody else over there is taking,
Yeah.
black history and
Mhm.
black literature and African American, and they were like, you are an athlete, you don't take those courses. And
Right.
that was the day when she said, oh no, I'm being cheated of something.
Yeah.
And that was her beginning her journey to be, I mean, I'm really condensing her story,
Yeah, yeah,
but beginning her journey to becoming an academic and a scholar and an educator, or
yeah,
a thinker about education. And I was just fascinated with how basketball saved her life. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, her book is amazing.
Yes,
We
yes,
Want to
it
Do
is.
More Than Survive. She talks about abolition
Yes, yes.
teaching. Phenomenal. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
So we're talking about the impact of teachers, of
yeah.
coaches, of Black women. I have to ask, what do you love about being a Black woman? But also, what do you see the challenges of that Black women face in this current political climate?
I appreciate those questions, but that kind of a question, but I've never been anything else other than a black woman.
Yeah.
I don't, and I've only been black, and I've only been a woman,
Mhm.
obviously simultaneously.
Mhm.
So I don't have anything else to compare it to.
Mhm.
Um, and so, but I am so happy, so grateful to God, and to the universe and to my ancestors, that I am a black woman in this particular moment in history, with this particular historical moment. I am, if I if you have to be a black woman, this is a great time to be a black woman, to have grown up being a black woman, to have witnessed what I have witnessed, and then watch black people, black and brown people, people from the global South,
Mhm.
to see those of us who have been struggling, who know struggle, who understand struggle. Um, it has been a wonderful time to see across the world, not just here in the States. And obviously, I'm talking more about before this last iteration of this of our federal administration, but just to see. I wish that my mother, I wish that my grandmothers had lived to see this era in for black women, had lived to see a black president, had lived to seeing Jesse Jackson even run for president,
Yeah.
to see Shirley Chisholm run in 72. Just the things that I have lived to see. This has been a great time. This current struggle notwithstanding, it still has been, I'm grateful for that because I've just seen how we have endured, we thrived, not just endured and survived, but we've also thrived. How beautiful we are, our music, our writing, our poetry, our dance, our speaking, our in being inventors and creatives. It is amazing. What is that saying? They thought that they had crushed us, but they didn't know that we were seeds.
Yeah, they thought they had
Uh,
buried us. Yes.
yeah, they thought that they had buried us, but they didn't know that we were seeds. And so that is probably what gives me hope, even during this very, very difficult time in which we live, when it is scary. It is all the things that we never thought that we would be back here like this. But I believe in the human spirit. I believe in the spirit of black and brown people, of liberation struggles. I believe in that. I'm going down on that belief right there. And I believe in the power of God. And so I think that for me at this point in history, it is a wonderful time. Even at this point in my own personal life, at this season of my life, I wouldn't want to be anything other than what I am right now. I love my dialogue partners.
Yeah.
I love the people I get to be in conversation with, and I love that we are thinkers and writers and fighters and strugglers and artists all in one.
Yeah. Yeah. I love being a Black woman, Dr. Weems.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah.
in the spirit of Black womanhood, you are also a womanist scholar. For
Yeah.
those who have never heard of womanism, how do you define it, and what are your contributions to this scholarship?
Well, let me say that it is a shame if there are those who have never heard of it. There's no reason why one hasn't. And I say this also because I just finished an essay for the Oxford University Press on the early decades of womanism. And so those early decades we're talking about now is 50 years old. So why haven't why are we still having to define a term, a word, a methodology, a conversation, a movement, if you will, an ideological kind of term that is now 50 years old? So I don't know where to lay the blame that I don't know I don't know if on another podcast, your white counterpart podcast, if anybody is asking, can you please define feminism?
Mhm.
Probably is. I mean, I can't imagine that you wouldn't, because there still are people who find that term inflammatory enough. Even if they've heard of the term, it's still inflammatory enough that people are still needing to define it. This is not that's not a statement against you. It's just my saying we are still having to define this term, and I find that sad. I
Yeah.
find that problematic that one, that there are those who don't know what it is, and two, that we are still being made as black women to kind of define why we need this term. But
Mhm.
that being said, it is it is certainly the commitment to the full thriving and survival of Black women. It's the unapologetic commitment of standing and believing in and working toward the full survival and thriving of Black women, understanding that we are surviving and thriving in a system that is designed to destroy us, and to important not only to say that what your commitment is. Our commitment is to Black women's flourishing by all means, but we understand that that commitment is to Black women's flourishing in a society that is committed to Black women not flourishing.
That's right.
So I think we have to include that part. And so what does that mean? I mean, there's the academic definition. There's the methodologies that we are involved in academia around womanist scholarship, and whether that is biblical scholarship, ethics, or theology, or pastoral care, church history, etc. So there is the academic side of it, and rightly so. But womanism, like feminism, because I was a feminist before I was a womanist,
Mm,
did not emerge in the academy. Womanism seems to be associated with the academy, and has had its most robust conversation within the academy. But it emerged, the notion of it in terms of a commitment to Black women. I mean, to my even before Alice Walker, to my just the notion of Black women's thriving and surviving and flourishing is much larger than the academy. I mean, Alice Walker helped us by helping bring to our remembrance a term that we already had in the Black community for sassy, headstrong, defiant Black girls. You're acting womanish.
mm,
And when she suggested that as a term, as opposed to feminist, because she knew it, because and it caught on because we recognize it, it resonated with our understanding of how Black women talk about fast Black girls, but also it meant defiant, and willful. I love that. That's what we used to call. She's
yeah.
so willful,
Mhm.
and all of that. But so there is the FOLK understanding of womanism. What do ordinary Black women understand about womanism, about Black women's agency, about Black women's thriving? And then there is the academic understanding of womanism as a methodology, as a theological or academic discourse. They are not I mean, they resonate, they blend, and they work with each other. They are not opposed to each other. But I am both an academic, and I'm a woman, and I'm a church girl. I'm a church woman. So I have had to work and walk in those two worlds and try to, on one level in the academic world, help to define the term and methodologies and be a part of those. Are a little bit more esoteric kind of conversations, if you will, methodological conversations. And then at the church level, I have to go back within the church or with ordinary settings, sororities, churches, civic clubs, whatever, when I do that work, to kind of flesh that out, to model it, even when I don't use the term, but to model it, but also to make sure that my work in those settings are reflect my personal commitments as a womanist.
Thank you. I really appreciate how you are making the distinction between like the folklore of womanism
Yeah,
and the academic study of womanism. I
yeah,
think that resolves a lot of criticism of womanism as being only connected to the academy. And a lot of people juxtapose womanism to Black feminism and seeing a more radicality to Black feminism, a more political movement associated with Black feminism, which is probably a false dichotomy between the two. But it is a criticism that I think both studies face. But I love how you are rooting womanism in the everydayness and
yeah,
the everyday lives of Black women. That doesn't have to be an academic study, and it can be an epistemology that informs academic study.
yeah, absolutely. l- I think many of us knew, certainly from my generation, I can only talk about it from my generation,
Mhm.
the word feminism was not going to fly, period. It was not going to fly. It was not a term that was going to fly in Black church circles. It was not necessarily a term that was going to fly in Black women's social circles. It was so identified with white women and
Mhm.
white women, and all of that painful memory and all those painful conflicts and tensions between black and white women. Feminism, and that was probably unfair. Let me just say, we because the larger conversation that you and I can have is, what does it mean to just be women in a patriarchal society?
Mhm.
Period. It's
Mhm.
about patriarchy. It really
Period.
isn't about the women. It's about the nature of patriarchy to demonize and pathologize and caricature any of our terms that lift up women. Whether patriarchy, caricatured feminism and made it problematic, and patriarchy caricatured womanism and made it problematic. So clearly. So let's just admit that we are living in it's a larger system again that we're talking about. But one thing that was clear is that the word feminist, black feminist, feminism was not going to get a hearing in the 70s and 80s and 90s, maybe even not now in the 2026s. So
Mhm.
black feminism ends up being still largely an academic conversation, and maybe, clearly some radical spaces by all means, but the ordinary woman, the ordinary black woman, and these are all false labels, I'll admit, and is and I'm generalizing, was not interested in the word feminist anything. So when there's this attempt to say, well, it's about radicality. Yeah, I'm down for being radical, but I'm also down for being heard, and I'm also down for reaching the sister at the bus stop, and I'm also down for being reaching the woman on the motherboard. And I'm also down for reaching the woman who just doesn't operate in those kind of languages, and who would likely have a problem with the word feminist, because that they have heard, and that word they associate with white women. So womanism became our own, became one that was uh, generic and particularly native, if you will, indigenous, if you will, to our own culture by and large, mostly. So it was handy, it was useful, and obviously there are some ways in which it attempts to be different from feminists, but by and large, it was an attempt to use something that was native and known and indigenous to Black culture.
Thank you for that. In her article, Must I
Mhm.
Be Womanist?
Mhm.
Monica A. Coleman writes, quote, I can't imagine what kind of scholar I would be, what kind of woman I would be if I had not encountered Walker, Alice Walker, Katie Geneva Cannon, and yourself, Renita Wilms, and
Mhm.
encountered them before William Faulkner, Reinhold Niebuhr, and Walter Brueggemann, end quote.
Mhm.
Dr. Williams, how do you respond to younger Black women and Black women religious scholars today who are still asking this question, must I be a womanist, not just as a longing or searching or desire to fit in, but a critique of womanism for its perceived elitism, exclusion, and inaccessibility?
Well, I think you just said it's perceived.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let me see. I'm not sure. Okay, must I? Yeah, let me just say this part. One of the things I appreciate about it, you've just given me. I mean, I'm familiar with the article, so I really appreciate you quoting the Monica thing. But obviously, Dr. Monica, it occurs within a larger argument that she is
Yes.
making. So let me see if I can dissect a little bit of this to say there is, must I be a womanist? There is, let's just say there's that question, and then there is the question of, is womanism elitist? What's those other terms?
That's
Elitist
fair.
and
Exclusionary and
okay,
inaccessible.
okay. So let's do two things. Let's
Okay.
let's 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 take those two things apart.
Okay.
There is first womanist. Must you be a womanist? My answer is yes. Must you be elitist, exclusionary, etc.?
No.
No. So they are not necessarily, they are not the same thing. So why womanist? Let's unpack that for a second. Labels matter. Labels hold you accountable. Labels identify what your priorities are. It is not necessarily to make you over and against somebody else. It just like you ask me, what are your pronouns?
Mhm.
Then I ask you, what is your politics? What matters to you? Where's your line in the sand? What what are you willing to die for? What do you believe in? Labels do that. Whether that is being a womanist, whether that is being post-colonial, whether that is identifying yourself with whatever your organization is, whatever your political affiliation is, we use labels. I need labels. I try not to live my life only. I try to live my life in a way that I know that labels only tell you one side of the person or one part of the person, that people are much more complex by their labels, but it sure does help me to know your labels. We want to know, where school did you go to? What part of the country are you from? We're already labeling you. Believe me. You tell me you from Harlem, you ain't from Atlanta. You ain't from Atlanta. So you've already labeled yourself by saying you're from Harlem. I've already labeled myself by saying I'm from Atlanta. I've already labeled myself by saying I'm a boomer. So labels, I don't have a problem with labels. So my point is, first, womanist, the term woman, whether woman is feminist, whether it's a black liberationist, whatever, they identify your politics. They identify what matters to you. What are some of your priorities? It holds you accountable. When I tell you that I'm a woman, it's therefore you expect certain things from me. You expect a certain level of conversation from me. You expect a certain level of commitment from me about women, about Black women. It means that when I treat Black women a certain kind of way, you can jack me up and say, "But I thought you were a womanist." It means that, if that when I say that I'm a Christian, it ought to matter. It means that there are certain things you can hold me accountable to. You should be able to say, "But you say you're a Christian. Then how could you treat this? How could you have done these?" Labels are important because they identify your priority, your politics, and your priority. They also hold you accountable. And also, labels make it clear the universality is a lie. There is no such thing as the universal person, and that we are not all just universal people. And why do we have to call ourselves all these things? And when we're all just people, no, we're not all just people. Because whenever we fall up under the label of we're all just people, they really always end up meaning only white people and white men. They get to be the ones they get to be the universal people, and everybody else is an aberration. So I mean, you can see I feel very strongly about this. So I don't let people. I did when I was younger, when I didn't have this kind of language at my fingertip. I don't let people make me feel bad, embarrassed, or apologetic about being womanist or about being anything else that I am, Christian or Black or whatever else. So there is that. Now, that does not automatically mean, therefore, one is elitist and exclusionary. Toni Morrison has a line. She says, "Lovers are no," and I think it may be from Bluest Eye. A lover is no better. Love is only as good as the lover. That's what she says. Love is only as good as the lover. Cruel, cruel people love cruelly. Stingy people love stingily. Gracious people love graciously. Something like that. My point is, womanism is only as good as the womanist who introduces you to it.
My,
A
my.
raggedy. Okay, so therefore, if it comes off elitist, it's because the person who was explaining is a elitist blankety blank. Okay, so let's be clear about another thing. Womanism does not excuse any behavior that Black women get away with doing whatever they want to do under the term of womanism. Let me say this as an old woman to the young women. Yeah, we got some lines in the sand. We're saying that, sister, I know y'all believe in that, but look at him. Everything is not acceptable as a womanist. Everything is not acceptable. And you are not beyond critique. You're not beyond being snatched. You're not beyond being judged. Everything does not apply. Everything is not acceptable. So when we talk about flourishing, and our survival and Black women's joy. The old women be just sitting there saying, okay, everything is not acceptable. It doesn't mean that you cannot be critiqued or judged or held accountable or snatched. And I think sometimes I hear younger women describe who they are and what it means to be a Black woman and what we all about and our agency. And it's like, no, but it don't mean everything goes, y'all. We it's not an excuse for that you do not get critiqued or snatched or disagreed with. So if it has come across as elitist, it's because the people who are writing and talking about it are elitist and don't know how to break it down. If it comes across as exclusionary, it's because the person who you were reading at that time was an exclusionary writer. But in and of itself, it is. But in terms of its origins, that's not what it was about.
Dr. Weems, one thing that we can count on with you is you are going to keep it real. And I just want to know, who are you out here snatching in these women streets?
No, girl, ain't nothing but water in here. I need something else in here to tell you that answer.
No, what you
Talk to me on the basketball court over there in the bleachers. Then you know I'm gonna tell, but I can't tell you right here.
I know what to put in that cup to get you talking too. Oh, thank you for that. I think it's really important that we do some of the internal work so that we are presenting womanists on generative and healing terms that
Okay. Yeah.
isn't divisive, that isn't mean girl, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there is some healing work to do within uh, the community of people who profess to be womanists.
Yeah.
And I think doing that healing work will um, help womanists thought feel more accessible, safe for others to join. Because there is a generation of people who do not identify as womanists, usually younger people, because they are seeing how we move. And it's similar to church, right? It's similar to church. People critique the church because they are expecting some type of sanctuary, safety, kindness. But in fact, they receive the opposite of that, whether it's church hurt
Yeah.
or so
Yeah.
or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. Yeah.
you're right that we have to be aware of that
Yeah.
and hold each other accountable.
But I think also, may I, and I want you can push back on with
Sure.
me on this, but I think that this is one of the things that I think I noticed in, I mean, I don't know why I didn't make the connection until as you were saying it, because I was at a meeting a couple of years ago where, some younger Black women who were in ministry, let me just let's say professional, they were in ministry, and they were talking about why they are not womanists.
Mm-hmm.
And they started talking about who first hurt their feel.
Mhm,
I'm not going to
mhm,
try to minimize it.
mhm,
Who hurt their feelings? And the
mhm,
first woman is that they met, and how they were so mean to them, and how that if they said to themselves, if that's womanism, I don't want it.
mhm,
Now, I was sitting there, and I was just saying, what, and for you to bring this up again. I mean, so there's obviously there's whole. Let me just say this. There's obviously a whole conversation of they so mean
mhm,
that I'm like, I'm just, it stuns me that it's so stereotypically
mhm,
associated with women who sit around talking about, because they so mean to us and because they're not nice to us. And I'm like, I'm so embarrassed that that's the
mhm,
level of what makes you not want to do this. My doctor is mean, but I need an oncologist. I mean, but I don't sit around here talking about she's mean. I mean, So anyway, I just find that, and as somebody who has been a teacher, and I think, but my point is, I think that our expectations of women leaders, of women professors, is unfair. It is, and what we expect of women who do this work, who have been trailblazers or who are out here in these streets doing this hard work. And because I'm out here doing this hard work and I may have snapped at you, and now it's like, see, they so mean. This is why we don't want to be womanists. And it's like, okay, I don't understand all of that. But my point is, it's such an aggrieved, AGGRIEVED generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just so aggrieved about you hurt their feelings, you weren't nice to them. As if, now this is what, again, you, like Dr. Williams is going to keep it real. Y'all, I don't mean you, Nikia, but those who are listening to me getting ticked, let me help you. You think you would have liked Ella Baker? You
Mm.
think Nanny Helen Burroughs and Fannie Lou Haber were nice?
Mm.
You think Mary Church Terrell would have been nice to you? These women, and Polly Murray, you think, whoa, I'm so sorry. You think we tend to idealize these people and think that they would have been nice women, that they would not have hurt my feelings. These women jacked up the younger women. Dorothy Height became the president of the National Council of Negro Women, but you can be assured that Mary McLeod Bethune jacked her up. Now, listen, I've earmarked you to be the head of my organization, but let me tell you something, little honey. Before I give you my National Council of Negro Women, I need you to get this together, that together, fix this attitude, just like your coach told you. And
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't turn around and say, "Oh, she's so mean." Now she may have been mean, but you needed to do what she just told you to do. So my point is, if being pleasant, and this is no, I'm not making any excuse for rude, nasty, mean, sick behavior. So let's be clear, we're not talking about that. But I believe that you miss out on a lot of great mentoring, friendship, just conversation by sitting over in the corner with your girls talking about they so mean, and we're not going to do this, that we're not going to follow in their footsteps, or we're not going to use that term because they so mean. That men do not do. Women do that.
Dr. Weems has spoken. Dr. Dr. Weems has spoken. And certainly Dr. Coleman's article isn't talking about this kind of mean girl
No, no, no,
culture
no,
in
no, no, she's
womanism.
not. No,
He's
she's
talking
not.
about the normativity and the Christocentrism and so forth. And
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
holding that in a
Absolutely.
separate bucket. But I also
But
will.
she is saying that there is that Black feminist tradition has a longer history and a longer tradition, and resources that we can draw on than womanism. I mean, she's at least saying also that she's making a case for also Black feminism, and understandably so. I don't challenge that. I'm not that doesn't bother me at all.
Mhm.
But what does bother me is the caricaturing. What I feel like is the caricaturing both of the scholarship of womanism and of womanists, individual womanness as well. That's the part that annoys me.
I could spend a lot of time here because I understand both perspectives,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't want to victim blame, right? So if someone feels hurt by the womanists they've encountered, I don't think
Hmm.
it's only on their responsibility to accept womanism, but it's also a responsibility of the womanists who created the culture that hurt them to take accountability. And I also don't think a legacy of mean Black women justifies, and I don't know, I know you're not saying this, um, a mean girl culture within womanism, because hurt people, and so we have a responsibility um, to move from a place of healing. And so and I hear what you're saying, that it is unfair to do oversweeping generalization attacking the personality of womanism because we don't see that. We rarely say Trump is mean, right? I mean, we call him a lot of things, but um, what you see, I think, within white institutions is maybe an attack on ideology more than attack on personhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when
Mm-hmm.
we get to us, it's a pointing finger at people as opposed to the system that is surrounding us, right? And so, womanist is a system. It is an ethos.
Mm-hmm.
It is a study that isn't minimized or reduced to any single personality.
Well, God bless his memory, Cornel West,
Mm,
Cyric Lincoln, Gaylord Wilmore.
hmm
I could just name the men who had their own personalities
hmm
and their own ways of doing things and their own ways of Charles Long. I'm old enough to know some of these founding personalities and names. Interesting stories. We could
mm,
just sit around and tell interesting stories about their own interactions with with each other and their interactions with their mentees. But you'll never hear their mentees, or you never even hear those who are not their mentees talk about, yeah, man, I never was into Black liberation theology because when I met Cone, blah, 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 and he said something that, I said to myself, now, a Black person talking about why that they would never become a Black liberationist because Cone
yeah.
was rude to them.
Mhm.
But we're talking about Black liberation. We're not even talking about Cone. We're talking about a methodology that we need to dismantle a system. And you talking about Cone that day didn't answer your question and was rude to you and went to the next person. That's what I am talking
Yeah,
about. I'm talking
right.
about these same men.
hmm
If you find out they had some interesting stories, and
hmm
they fought and battled with each other, and they fought and battled with those who came behind them. But you never hear those who came behind them talking about, well, the reason why I never really believed in Black history, Black liberation, why I wouldn't follow Cyric Lincoln is because you're like, oh, now this is colonialism.
Yeah.
This is colonialism at the gender level.
Yeah, I think I see your point. We preserve the legacy of men no matter the harms that they cause.
Yeah,
Um, Bill Cosby, right? We could
yeah, yeah,
Puffy and so forth.
yeah,
So thank you for that. I want to switch gears. I know we're deep into our time,
yeah.
but I don't get this opportunity often to sit
Mhm,
with the
mhm,
Dr. Renita Weems. So I want to switch to your scholarship as a biblical scholar. So as you know, Abolitionist Sanctuary is building an alternative religious and emancipatory space rooted in the survival practices of Black mothers. And so I want to first frame your relationship to Black motherhood. Can you talk to us about your journey of being mothered and of mothering? And what are your thoughts about Black mothers struggling to survive who are punished for merely trying to meet their basic needs?
Um, I am a sucker for a great mother-daughter story.
Yeah.
I love books about mothers and daughters. I love stories about mothers and daughters. I love great movies about mothers and daughters. And the more complex and nuanced and maybe even ugly it is, the more I love it. If you ask me what are some of my favorite ones, I maybe, the one that sticks out with me, it sticks out for me, and a little known one, called the White Oleander, and I don't expect anybody to know it, but it is Michelle Pfeiffer. I think it's Michelle Pfeiffer. I believe that's who plays the mother, and the young woman who plays the daughter. I can't remember the daughter's name, but it is about an evil mother. It is about a self-absorbed mother who and how she manipulates her daughter. It is a For me, it is a beautiful story because it is about a daughter who loves her mother, but her mother continues to manipulate her. But her mother is brilliant. Her mother goes to jail, but from jail, she manipulates her daughter. Nevertheless, it is about how complicated the mother-daughter relationship is. And that's probably also why I've always loved, especially, but I think Black women writers are always writing about mother-daughter relationships. But but certainly the reason why I fell in love with Toni Morrison, whether it was The Bluest Eye or Sula or Song of Solomon, and obviously beloved, Toni Morrison could put her finger on mothering and motherhood like no one else. She gave us that. She helps to give that language. But I think Black women writers, whether it's In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, et cetera, whether it is Polly Marshall's Brown Girl, Brown Stones, uh, Black women have written a lot, and there are great movies as well. It's a complicated relationship. I was just telling someone the other day, I remember a line from Patti LaBelle's autobiography, and it's an old autobiography. It should be 30 or 40 years ago. I believe it was hers and not Gladys Knight. I love biographies. But I remember something. She says, a woman isn't a woman. You don't become a woman until your mother dies. And I was quoting that to somebody, and there's something about when that last person, that person who stands between you and the grave, dies, and that's your mother. Uh, um, you don't really grow up. You don't really know that it's on you now, that the baton has been passed. Now you it. So I mean, I just remember that line. I don't know why, otherwise, from LaBelle's autobiography, but she's obviously talking about the death of her mother and multiple and her sisters who died from cancers. But my point here is, I'm very clear that I was mothered by a number of obviously I started with colored school teachers. I obviously can name women in the church like a Cecilia Williams Bryant and other and Dorothy Height to some degree. And I mean, I could just and I hesitate calling names because I'm going to get off this and I'm going to say, oh my God, why didn't I mention so and so and so and so? But but you have to be motherable in order to be mothered. Everybody is not motherable. Let's be very, very clear about that. And But I was motherable. I did not mind yielding and being vulnerable to older, particularly to older women. So I have always valued that kind of wisdom, that kind of kitchen table wisdom, that kind of and again, I want to keep using this word because I think that this is the word that doesn't get used enough: accountability and vulnerability. I allowed myself to be challenged. I took what we say in the church. I took correction. Okay, I'll use the image from men. I knew how to live up under authority. I had no problem with authority. I might now, mind you, I might mumble when I walked away from him. I'm sure I mumbled and said, "Who should I did all of that." But right in front of her, I said, "Yes, ma'am." So let's just be clear that there's a whole lot of this that's going on and not going on in succeeding generation. I was I lived up under authority. I took authority, and the Bible says that a certain man went to ask Jesus to come heal his daughter, and he said, "But listen, you don't have to come to my house." He says, "I'm a man of authority. I recognize a man of authority." So when you have authority, when you have power, when you know how, when you manage people, when you know how, you're not intimidated by people who have power because you understand power. Power understands power. And so therefore, I meant that maybe I was always going to become what you said earlier, Renita Weems. So in order to become that, I had to surround myself with people who had that kind of sense of their authority and their ability to correct you because that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
want them. I didn't want the others. I wanted that, and I wanted to know how they came to be who they were, and to be with those kind of women who have been burned, who have had to learn how to work in spite of being burned. You may have to be poked a little bit yourself. And so mothers for me was I had a difficult relationship with a mother, and so I was mother hungry.
Mhm.
And so I was receptive. I have a daughter now, and she pays me back
Mhm.
for all the ways that I used to be.
Mhm.
So she is I mean, she is me, but she's also herself, and it is a beautiful journey.
Thank you.
And I love her as an adult more than I liked her as a teenager.
I'm sure she loves you unconditionally. And
Yeah. Okay, that part from your mouth to God's ear, that part.
but I love how you had good models to mother you and that you were motherable. Because I think people who know you and respect you appreciate the wisdom that you impart. You are a
Mhm.
sage of our time. And it's just a privilege to sit at your feet and to get these stories
Mhm, mhm,
and lessons. So I have three questions that I want to
mhm,
fit in, Dr. Wayne, for before we end
mhm.
this interview, and we're well
Okay.
over time. One, you are the first African American woman to earn a PhD in Old Testament studies.
Mhm,
So, what does the Hebrew Bible say about motherhood that we can use to highlight the struggles of Black mothers with survival today in the contemporary time? I know Hagar
mhm.
is used a lot. I'm wondering if there are other biblical characters you can think of. So that's one question. And if you can answer it now, if you need time to think on that, I could lay out
Mhm.
the other two.
Um, I'm a color school teacher.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting that I'm almost like, okay, the atmosphere has shifted in this interview. Okay, now we're going to Bible. We're gonna do the Bible now. Okay. It's like,
No,
oh,
because so
we were all in the culture, but now okay,
no,
but
but
I like I know
the
Bible,
through
but
line is here was you talking about Black motherhood. So what does the Bible say
oh
about
yeah,
Black
what did the
motherhood?
Bible say about motherhood? I got you. But I want you to know you just shifted. But I'm like, okay, so
We have so much to talk about. I'm just trying to hit it
I
all.
got you. I got you. You know, I'm not that Bible scholar. Let me just say that I'm not that Bible scholar who
Okay.
can give you the pithy answer of, well, the Bible says this about motherhood, because it doesn't. It
Yeah.
doesn't say much about motherhood from a what's that? From an instructional. Thou shalt not, beyond, love your mother and the father, honor your mother and father. It doesn't give us it's not, we don't have in we don't have in the Bible what the book of Proverbs does for a father talking to his son, or a man instructing a son. Proverbs, toward the end of it, it says, now, my son, blah 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 blah. I mean, so there is didactic. I think that's the language I'm reaching. There is language in the Bible where you hear the instructional voice of a man to a son. You have father son language throughout the Bible, father son stories throughout the Bible, that you can extrapolate from that. Is what does it tell us about fatherhood? It's easier to talk about fatherhood in the Bible because we got so many examples, and we also have stories, and we also have instructional, pedantic writings in the Bible. We don't have in the same way, in the same amount. We have stories about mothers. We even have a few stories about mothers and daughters. But we have more stories, if they constitute a real story, about mothers and son. Yes, we know about Ruth and Naomi. We know about Naomi and her sons. Yes, we know about. I'm just trying to think of even the woman in the New Testament who goes to Jesus on behalf of her daughter. We know those kind of. There are these stories here and there, and there may be some others that I'm just kind of blanking on. but by and large, this gets me back to my other piece of, as we get back to womanism.
Yeah.
uh, you juggling for me is juggling this text that I grew up on, that I cut my teeth on, that I devoted my career to. I've got a PhD in, but at the same time I have to, and that has in so many places in this canon, in this book, I have found sustenance, I have found life, and I have found image and language for the world in which I want to deconstruct, and the one that I want to construct. But I am not naive about the fact that in many ways it is a book by men, for men, about men,
Hmm.
hands down. And because I am a woman, I have learned how to find my way in it. I watch plenty of movies. I love
Hmm.
Born series. Male through and through. Game of Thrones, in many ways, through and through. Women know how to extrapolate from patriarchal stories, lessons, and that they can live on. Most men do not know how to do the opposite. The moment it becomes a woman's story, they tune out. The
Hmm.
moment it becomes women's music, they tune out. So my point is that whatever I might say about what does the Bible teach us about mothers and motherhood, it teaches us within the context of a patriarchal culture, which suggests that mothers are for the women are property, that a woman's highest, noblest goal is to be a wife and a mother. That within a patriarchal text, it is about women being sacrificial, and it's not about female agency. There are stories of women who are queens and who are witches and who do wonderful things, but by and large, it is a patriarchal text. But if I allowed that to keep me to be my a barrier, then I would never have enjoyed most of everything that I experienced, whether
Yeah.
in literature or art or anything. So my point is, I could I have done many Mother's Day sermons, so you can be assured I have found some texts in there, and I have waxed eloquent about them. But on a podcast of this sort with your kind of audience, I want to say it is a patriarchal text,
Yeah.
and I hold it dear in my heart. But I am aware I don't want to be that kind of woman that the Bible idolizes. I
Yeah.
don't want to be sacrificial. I don't want to just be somebody's mother and wife. I've already failed because I don't have any sons.
Hmm.
I've already failed by biblical standards.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you will find in it beautiful statements from the Song of Solomon. You'll find um, a charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears God is to be praised. Right there in Proverbs 31, who otherwise is talking about this exhausted wife, and who can find a more noble. So you find these little gems here and there in this text that is otherwise patriarchal, but that has come down through the centuries as inspirational, even if it is sometimes very harming.
Yeah, thank you for that. And to overemphasize the patriarchy, that is the
Yeah,
historical context of that historical book, the Bible.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that patriarchal system continues to
Yeah,
saturate the church today.
I think we underestimate. I think that's my point, and I know
Yeah.
we've got to press on. But
Yeah. No,
if
please.
there's anything, I think that Black women, I think that the women that who are listening, if they get anything else from this
Yeah.
podcast and the conversation with me, is that I think that racism is a sin, but I think we see sexism as naughty,
Mhm.
but not as a sin, not as a part of a larger patriarchal society. I think we fight these women issues and women fight and these women, what these women are doing, but we don't see that this is a part of one thing that Trump, you have to give it, this whole world that Trump is exposing, is that we have to understand these are systems.
Yeah.
This is a culture of misogyny and misogyny. This is not just about me and you and our different generations. This is about a society that is invested in keeping women fighting,
Yeah.
disagreeing, and being unfair to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I
Yeah.
just wanted to say
No,
that.
that's perfect. So, what advice do you give women who are discerning a call to ministry? I know you wrote this beautiful book, Listening for God: A Ministry Journeys Through Silence and Doubt. I purchased this book several times a year. I just gifted it to a colleague, to anyone who, I give recommendations who are thinking about ministry. What advice from this book or from your experience would you give to women in particular, but people who are discerning a call to ministry in this patriarchal system that we also call
Yeah.
the church?
Yeah, I think I would probably say today something that I didn't say back then when I wrote the book, or when other people have asked me this question, and I want to apologize that again, like I said, you're talking to somebody who needs a runway
Mhm.
when podcast wants somebody who really works with helicopters. I don't just take off and answer a question. I need a runway. Okay, I'm a scholar, I'm a thinker, I'm an academic. We words are my business. So okay, so
Oh,
those of you who are listening to us, listen, honey, I told you I'm old and I am an academic. I need a runway. So what would I say? I would say, listen, someone said it. I think I'm gonna get real churchy here and answer this
mhm,
question. Ministry is not about ministry. Ministry is about, are you prepared to be an elder in the church? Are you prepared to serve? Are you prepared to walk with people? Are you prepared? It is not about the pulpit. It is not about having a platform. And I think that I wish someone had told me that part. It is not about a place to work out your own demons. It really is a place and a word that I have recalled from service. But I'm now old enough to need a pastor and to want a pastor. And I don't mean a pastor as in somebody who pastors a church. I'm talking about a minister who listens. We're, everything now is about, well, you know what my therapist said. And I'm like, that used to be what we would say about ministers.
mhm,
It's so fashionable now. And it's right. And you need a therapist. I'm not knocking that, but I'm just saying, oh, how the church has fallen on hard times.
mhm,
It is no longer, it's more about what sorority you belong to. When I grew up, when it was what church did you go to? And it was once was, my pastor, I was talking to my pastor. Now it is, I was talking to my therapist. And I would say, it's such a painful time that somehow or another the church, the black church, that anchor institution, that old ship of Zion, that place has religion. I mean, so it's not just about the black church. This is what has happened with Western Christianity, which is a whole nother conversation, period. So this is not an indictment so much about the church, but it's just the willingness to just trash it, to drag it, and again, I have a history of being one of the black church's biggest critics. So
mhm,
I have not spared the church, but I must admit that now I recoil when I hear some of what I hear my own colleagues say on in social media about the church, and I get it. I understand hurt. I believe that these things are happening, and I believe they need to be called out. But I think in my declining years, I want to call out what has been the good parts of the church
mm,
and what has been the saving parts of the church. And it, the people 60 years ago were as flawed as the ones today. There's nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. But I am going to go down by reminding us of what this church, what this community, this beloved community, these old people, these old flawed people, what they were able to build and what they were able to do in the church. to bring a whole generation of us up to the place now where we can turn around and say what we can turn our butts up at it and say whatever we want to say at it. And that's part of your child growing up. But here's what I do know. Life will send you some things later on that you're going to be reaching for the very institutions that that you despise.
That's right.
As I say to my daughter all the time, yeah, you can say whatever you want about me. You can be mad at me. You can slam the door as you go to your house. That's all right. But one day you're going to be on this side. And I hate it when old folks said that
Hmm. Hmm.
when I was young. I hate it when they said
Yeah.
that. But one day you're going to need that church. One day you're going to want to hear as you are dying. You're not going to want to hear Nipsey. You want to hear Amazing Grace.
Hmm.
The music you're going to want to hear as you're transitioning, as you're getting ready to go into the surgery, you're going to want to hear some of that old music. It has landed many a thousand. So I'm trying to hold on to that. And I think that's what that the beauty of it, the God-givenness of it, and the mystery of the beloved community. Forsake not, let me just go King James. Forsake not the assembling of yourselves,
Mm.
as is the custom. So these little brunches that everybody talking about, they have their little brunches on Sundays. It's like it's fine when you can pay your bills. It's fine when your health is fine. It's fine when all is well. But baby, there's a diagnosis. There is a tragedy. There is an unfathomable sorrow that we're all going to go through. And I can promise you, you're going to reach for those same conversations and scriptures and people and songs because they have landed many a thousand.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Weems. If we had more time, I would ask about your relationship with your girls and the
Yeah,
importance of
yeah,
sisterhood.
yeah,
If we had more time, I would ask you about your writing practice.
yeah,
If we had more time, I would ask
yeah,
about your hobby with knitting and quilting. But unfortunately, we are out of time.
yeah.
But before we say goodbye, I want to do our wrap up with a rapid round where I will tell you a word and you give us the first thought that comes to
Okay,
mind.
sure. Yeah.
Only only a
One
word
word. Yes, yes.
or
I can
two.
do that. I'm
Okay.
obedient.
Right.
I'm obedient. Go ahead.
Nashville,
Country.
bourbon,
Ah. Smooth.
pleasure,
Quilting.
love,
Plants.
life,
A struggle.
writing,
Mystery.
fabric,
Color.
memoir,
Memoir. Memory.
sister friends,
Laughter.
womanist,
Thinking.
God,
Unfathomable.
favorite food,
Paella.
favorite book,
Today it is the biography. That's the reason I can't think of something obsession. It's the biography of Octavia Butler.
okay. Favorite Bible passage,
Ah, the favorite Bible. We have this treasure in earthen vessels, so that the excellency of the power might belong to God and not to us.
amen. A favorite saying or phrase, if you have one.
You don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate.
Hmm. Favorite song,
Oh yeah. Anything by Nina Simone.
biggest pet peeve,
Biggest pet peeve is to be called emotional.
greatest fear,
greatest fear is that I will not be here to take my daughter through her deepest pain.
Mm. Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert who is forced to be an extrovert.
An abolitionist sanctuary?
Abolitionist sanctuary. The future.
Thank you for joining this
Thank you.
conversation. This is the Abolitionist Sanctuary podcast. For our audience and listeners, please download and share this episode on all platforms. Again, I am your host, Reverend Dr. Nakia Smith Robert, founder and executive director of Abolitionist Sanctuary. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and download our social mobile app. Also, enroll in our courses and become certified at abolitionacademy.com. Don't forget to become a member and subscribe to our mailing list at abolitionistsanctuary.org. As we conclude this episode, remember that abolition is not only a practice, but it is a way of life. And for me, abolition is my religion. Let's lead a faith-based abolitionist movement together.
Yeah.
Dr. Weems, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being on the show.
Thank you.